everybody. Welcome to Justice Served Daily. And we appreciate you guys jumping in, or if you're watching on the replay crew, hello. And I have Miss Paige here with me right now. Hello, Miss Paige.
Hello.
So we have been working feverishly getting information and stuff from last night from a rare court filing from the defense. And we're going to talk about that and talk about what the filing means and what that means actually here in the state of Indiana too. So we're going to go ahead and just get started, don't you think? Unless there's, I don't know, something housekeeping. Yeah. Oh, I do the housekeeping. Please press the like button and subscribe. I always forget that I'm horrible at that. Yeah. Because, you know, I'm not a monetized channel. If you're here new, the only way I feel your love is because you sit there and like the videos, comment on the videos, and subscribe, because that makes me feel good. And I know you then appreciate what we're doing here. So let me go ahead. And so while I'm showing this, as you may know, when I'm showing this presentation, it's a little bit difficult to see the discussion group and stuff like that, but we're going to be okay.
Yeah, and keep our eyes on it.
Yes. We'll try to keep an eye on comments or questions and stuff that you guys have. So, hi, Jamie Hicks. How are you? Hello. I always love her. I get my frustrations out when I listen to Jamie Hicks, like,
right?
Really get it all out, right? She makes me feel good about yelling and screaming and whatever,
and
right?
feeling like, the way you feel. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. So I appreciate that. And she's on the righteous side of the truth and answers. So, and so I love seeing those videos and stuff like that too, that she does. So welcome, Miss Jamie Hicks. We appreciate you. All right. So let's get this party started. And we love you too. We do love you too. So, Delphi murders. Defense files a interlocutory appeal, and it is rare. And I will show you proof how rare it is. Hello, CJK.
Hello.
We're just getting started, CJK, so you haven't missed anything whatsoever. And so we were looking at that document and stuff like that. We were trying to see also what was going on with the closeout of the status hearing date. And if you don't check out Community Post, I really encourage you to do. And I say this, and first of all, I never checked any YouTube Community Post.
I didn't realize it was there to begin with.
Well, yeah, back in the day, I didn't know that.
Nobody shared anything on there, really.
I mean, I never knew that was like a thing, like to go look at that. But it is a thing. So I do post daily.
Multiple times
daily. It depends what's going on. Hey, that's why, Justice Served Daily. There you go.
It is in the community tab.
Yeah. So
hourly.
Yeah. There can be lots of stuff that are going on. If there's updates of anything, court documents, any type of filings, any updates of cases that we've covered, like a court hearing, something getting moved. If there's any urgent missing children cases or missing cases like that around, we post it. Unidentified. We're going to get bigger in that, and Paige is going to be she's really the expert on that with NamUs and stuff, so she's going to kind of be leading that kind of stuff for me. and for we can get more into the unidentified to try to check if we can, help to match up with missing people.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, please check the community post. You would see this court document. So I did drop this document in the community post that you guys can see. So hello, look at it's Randy Gravett.
Oh, hi, Randy. Hello.
So anyway, so we're going to talk about that. And the other thing that we found, like, holy crap, that the defense sat here and talked about was Shane is here. Look at this. That
Oh,
the
hello.
defense states about law enforcement trying to tie Richard Allen to Tony Kline, but yet they're also saying that arguably that the only reason they interrogated Richard Allen was because of law enforcement initial belief that Tony and Richard committed
Knew
the
each
crimes
other
together,
and
and was
committed the
like,
crime.
what
Yeah.
the heck? Okay, so we're gonna look at that too. So yeah, let's move this one here. Okay, so the very first thing I'll just show you, if you haven't seen it, again, I always drop court documents in the community post for you guys. YouTube is not that overly friendly in trying to drop PDFs. I'm just going to say that, or I'm too challenged to actually figure it out correctly. But when you
No.
drop it, I can only do like 5 pages at a time. So sometimes I'll have to do multiple things. So I just want to let you know that until I can figure out better with the PDFs. And if you know how to do that, send me a message. So I just want to point out this document. So this document is from the court, and it is acknowledging, and if you look to the right-hand side first, closed status hearing. So remember, it was closed to the public. The closed status hearing conducted and concluded. So this is dating September 4th of 2024 that it was concluded. Done, right?
Yeah.
It's out. They're done doing whatever was going to happen back there, right?
Yeah.
So then we know about this new filing, and I wanted to this is just kind of the appellate rule. That's what you saw that they filed. The interlocutory appeal, and very short information as far as this part. But I pulled up a couple of the Indiana sites so that I could share directly, and we could go over this with you because I was going over this page earlier. So the appeal, what is it? So the interlocutory appeal, they are rare in Indiana. They're generally reserved, and I underline this part, are generally reserved for orders that are important or could decide the case, which I found that very interesting just in that terminology. Hello, Nana. Nice to see you. So, however, the threat of an appeal can be used to help resolve a case on more favorable terms. Some interlocutory orders may be applied automatically by right, while others require permission from the trial court and the Court of Appeals. That is where we are at for this. We are that Judge Gull has to approve that she will let this go to the appellate court because these were her final decisions made on 2 things, and I'll show you what those are, what they're arguing here in a minute. Now some are, like it says, automatic appeal or approval appeal. There's 2 people then that has to approve it, or 2 courts. First, it has to be Judge Gull Court who will approve to let them go to appeal. And then the second one is the actual Indiana Appellate Court has to accept that they will hear it. And then go from there. So when you talk about these different appeals and they talk about, has something been put as a final judgment, it has to be considered that it was a final judgment by the one court in order to move forward. I added through this little extra clip in here also because as Fox 59 itself was also reporting and in confirming with you of this rare.
Yeah.
So I just wanted also to show that not only am I showing you Indiana information stating that it's rare, but also, the news also reporting that as well. So there isn't, and this is the wording per the Indiana site. This isn't me writing it, so this is how they word it. There isn't much information about how many interlocutory appeals are filed in Indiana, but there's some information about interlocutory appeals in general in Indiana. And then it tells the I'm going to call it from appeal because I hate saying that word a million times. The appeals are rare, and the appeals are uncommon.
Yeah.
So now the standard of review, again, it says here to be eligible for the appeal, an order must meet certain standards, including that the order must have conclusively determined the disputed question, and the order must resolve an issue that's separate from the merits of the action. And the order must be effectively unreviewable on appeal from a final judgment. And then there's certification that you have to do in order to apply for that appeal. So to certify that appeal in Indiana, and we confirm this also just by the statement that it's saying on the My Case and on the document itself, that to file that motion in trial, the trial court has to certify the order for the appeal. Now, if you look at that, that's exactly what the defense filed, asking the court, and meaning in Judge Gull and stuff, that they need to certify those orders in order for them to move to appeal, and she has to approve it. If the motion is granted, to file a motion to accept the appeal with the Court of Appeals. So you can do all this, and the Court of Appeals can still say, nope, we're not going to do it. And then I looked up the success rate. And so in Indiana, it can be difficult to win, but they can be sometimes led to a better overall result. The chances of winning this appeal in Indiana are estimated to be between 10% and 16%. So it's not very high, meaning it's more than 80% chance of the appellate court upholding the trial court's decision. So, Judge Gull says, nope, we think that the confessions can be included, right? That was one. And that the confessions are being included based on, they're trying to say, they're trying to argue it was under, I'm trying to think, coercion, right? It was, I'm trying to think of the other word they used, but.
And they're trying to say it was against his rights, but it wasn't.
And they're trying to say that it was forced. I mean, they're technically using a couple reasons, right? They're trying to say it was by force he said anything. And then the other reason they're trying to say it is also because he's mentally ill.
Yes.
But that's before you learn that there's 61 confessions going on, and it's not to the same people. It's not just verbally, it's also in writing. It's to his wife and his mother on phone calls. It's in writing. To the warden.
He supposedly had mental illnesses before he went to jail, so jail didn't make him any worse or give him mental problems to make him confess.
Right. And he confessed to inmates who were basically guarding. They're not necessarily doing anything other than there's certain inmates who they have, maybe, I don't know how to word it, but like special privileges that they are put in charge of trying to help somebody who is under suicide watch. And so somebody has to be watching him 24/7 because that's immediately what he was under. So, when they look at all that, so they're trying to make, that's one of the issues they're trying to bring to this appellate court, that they don't agree with Judge Gold's final decision, and they want that appealed, and they want the appellate court to override what she said. And I would think that, honestly, if it was just on that decision alone, I would think that would be denied, because I just think you can't say he was forced to confess 61 different times in writing, on phone, verbally to the warden. You know what I mean? All of those.
Apparently to doctors too.
Yeah. So, anyway, so it talks about the two types, like I just brought up before, and it brings up the, appeal process and how to establish one versus the other. And, so the circumstances of the case. I don't think, I'm trying to check if there's anything important else to pull out there. And again, it talks about the low success rate of it. So even down there, it's saying between a 7 and 20%. But when they're talking up here in Indiana, it's 10 to 16%. So
yeah, it depends on the circumstances of the case. Yeah.
So we're going to go into, here's the motion for the court to certify court orders. So that's what we're talking about. This is why they have to request the certification.
Appeal, yeah.
For the interlocutory appeal pursuant to the appellate rule 14, which is what I showed you in the information. That first document was the legal document of appellate 14. And request to rule expeditiously on said motion. So basically, they're like, hurry the hell up, right? hey, Judge Gold.
Yeah, we gotta do this quick.
Yeah, let's just do this. Let's just get it. Make you hurry up.
Not like they are delaying anything.
No, not at all. They haven't made this longer than it had to be. So I just did clips of this because I know a lot of you don't want to hear the repeated odinist stuff through everything that we have that's in the document itself. So let me just warn you, I will share this.
Yeah.
And you can, to your heart's desire, read every little point that they talk about the odinist stuff. It is very repetitive of the odinist theories and, the Brad Holders and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But we're going to bring out some points to you.
Yeah. Go for it.
So here's the first one. What they're asking is that Richard Allen, by and through counsel, moves that this court to certify the September 4th, 2024 court order granting the state's motion that prevents the defense from presenting certain evidence. So that's one that they're putting in there. And the second one is the August 28th, 2024 order denying the defense motion to suppress certain statements made by Richard Allen for the interlocutory appeal pursuant to the Indiana Rule of Appellate Procedure 14. Furthermore, the defense would request this court to rule expeditiously Quick as hell.
Expeditiously.
I felt like I was saying supercalifragilistic or something over here for a minute.
It kind of sounded like.
Yeah, supercalif. Quick as hell. I'll put it that way. Based upon this is hilarious. Based upon the October 14th trial date, in support of said motion.
Okay, stop it now.
Yeah, so here's the problem. And this is awful because this has kind of been reported in the news. It's been reporting other stuff. Here's what's horrible, guys. We're a freaking month out. They're supposed to start jury selection again, right? Beginning part of October, that stuff will go out. They're going to go through all this expense, all this process and stuff again. And then here we go. Last time, remember, they decided, wait a minute, we don't have enough days to present our whole case. And we need like
An
3
extension.
weeks. Yeah, we need it to go longer. And there was no way to extend all that crap. And that's why it came back to October, which was the original date we had, that they had to move back again and all this kind of stuff. Well, here's the problem. If Judge Gull allows this process, which she doesn't have to, because this is available to the defense as an appellate reason. Does that make sense? So it meaning that he can appeal his case based on these reasons as well, and saying that her findings are wrong.
Yeah.
But they're trying to do this in advance of that, technically, to see if they're going to uphold based on these reasons. Obviously, they can appeal for whatever other reasons they apply for. But based on these reasons, they're trying to check if they can get this appeal. What's interesting is in the document, again, I'll be sharing this for you guys to look in the community post on my YouTube page, is that they basically, and Paige, I mean, we're reading through the stuff, and they're basically kind of saying, I mean, they're not directly saying that he's going to be found guilty, but basically they're kind of making that type of comments because the way they're phrasing it is
like they're already thinking about appealing it.
Right. And they're trying to say to say in the statement, well, if you go ahead and do this now, rather than it being appealed for a second trial, meaning their appeal trial, right? That they have the second trial, that if you don't do this, I mean, the reasons are unbelievable. They talked about, hold on, I wrote little notes. They talked about the taxpayers. They're concerned about how much in taxes, the taxpayers, I'm sorry, how much the taxpayers are going to pay for the trial. And jump in here, Annie, as you have yours there too. But let's see. Oh, the families. They didn't want, they wouldn't want how this was going to affect the families and stuff. How it's going to affect law enforcement, because they're going to have to go back through all the discovery and everything for it. When this is based on, you should do this now instead of waiting to do this for a second trial.
How it's going to affect Richard Allen by being incarcerated for even longer.
Right. He's going to have to be in jail longer. Yep. And I can't even read what my other note is here, right here. I'm trying to see what, let's see. Tax, family.
Yeah, I don't have anything.
It I mean, they just go through all of it. It's ridiculous. So they're basically, but it is interesting because they're kind of like, and not that they have to be truthful and they can't say something to us and not do what they say, but that it's kind of like, well, hey, if you do this now, it's going to save that this is going to be done later after he's found guilty. I mean,
well, it's like they've already given up in a sense, but they're still trying to make everything longer and waste time. Why? Yeah. It's
Yep.
just repetitive.
I'm just reading BH's thing. Yes, yes. Randy, I agree with you. There's been a lot of time wasted. BH, let me tell you, I do think there is some reasonable things that the defense can bring up. And that's just me being honest. And you know what? And we're gonna get into that because I don't want to jump ahead because then I'm gonna jump ahead of what we're fixing to present. Because I do think there's some things that the defense team should be allowed in a third party opportunity to bring up, but we'll go there in a minute. So here we've got, furthermore, the defense contends that the court's September 4th, 2024 order denied Richard Allen his constitutional rights of the following provisions of the Indiana Constitution. They go through that. And I didn't do that. You guys can check out the documents and stuff in there. And furthermore, as to the alleged confessions of defendant Allen, the defense contends that the court's August 28, 2024 order denied defendant Allen of his 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution, as well as constitutional rights under Article 1, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's the thing. I mean, for when it comes to the confessions, I don't think they have a leg to stand on. There's too many. If there, remember the very beginning when like everybody, and I'm trying to remember when it was like, I think it was still when the bond hearing was going on. It was kind of like when the bond hearing happened, like everything blew up and we were like, oh my God, right? Like there was a bunch of stuff happening. And one of the other things that was happening during that stuff was that we heard, and that was the only thing that came out in the public at the time, that there was like 5 to 6 confessions. Remember that? We thought, oh, it's 5 to 6. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, 5 to 6, right? Like, oh my gosh. And then the only thing that was kind of heard was there's kind of like, oh, one was to the warden or whatever. And so you're like, okay. But then you come back and that he has been confessing since March of 2023, making statements, saying things based on the testimony from the 3-day pre-trial.
Yeah, Jerry Holman.
And and the gentleman who actually listened to the tapes.
Yes.
They
confirmed that in his confessions he did state things only the killer would know.
Right. And we don't know if we know what all of that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and I'll throw out my example of some stuff. I think the Franks hearing that they filed, well, I don't think it, I know it. The Franks hearing that they filed was not just a regular legal document. You don't put your theory of Odinism in your Franks hearing. And then wonder why everybody knows what direction you're going with the case. A Franks hearing filing is only to file that you believe there was not just reason for them to do the search warrant. There was not that again, they were saying that the law enforcement was lying or they misled the court, that they shouldn't have entered a probable cause, and that they shouldn't have the search warrant. You don't then include your whole case of what you're relying on for Odinism. You just don't do that. And they did that. But when you think about stuff that we had with all the issues of the leaks, then you have to worry about, okay, well, some of their info that they sent out included stuff that wasn't supposed to get out or wasn't redacted properly like it was supposed to be done. That was including witnesses' names. That was including like them trying, crime scene photos that we know all how that happened. whether directly or indirectly, it still happened because of the defense.
Yeah.
And that one of the reasons that also that got in there, because they were also starting the rumors of, okay, well, Abby is wearing Libby's clothes. Well, we learn actually very more specifically because of the 3-day pretrial that it was, and they were trying to say like jeans and all this stuff. And I did a video on that wasn't true. That's not what clothes was described for Libby. She was wearing sweatpants, but she was wearing her sweatshirt on her clothes. So she put her sweatshirt on for whatever reason. Do we have theories about that? Absolutely. We talk about that all the time of what we think happened and why that went down, but that's another show.
Yeah.
But I think as far as the confessions and stuff are concerned, I don't think that's going to be overturned at all. There's just no way for them to say those are coerced. There's just nothing there.
Mm-mm.
But Nevada Tan said 5 to 6. They meant 56. That's hilarious. So as far as the other one for a third party thing, we have stuff we're going to talk about that too here, but let me get to this one, and I don't want to jump ahead of our slides. Okay, so the next one said, if the court has erred on the determination of the error is withheld, so meaning if Judge Gold made a mistake, and if this is held, is withheld until after the judgment, meaning after him being found guilty, then the appellant, the victims' families, and citizens of Carroll County will suffer substantially expensive damage as follows. And then it has this whole list again. Again, I'll share it for you to read it all. And then Richard Allen will suffer continued incarceration while awaiting the ruling from the Court of Appeals. Well, that's what you do after you're found guilty.
Right.
You guys get what I'm saying? I mean, they're saying, well, if you don't wait to find out if you're wrong, and you don't let us go appeal this right now, we're going to have to wait till after Richard Allen's found guilty, and then everybody's going to suffer. The families, the taxpayers, everybody's going to suffer, including Richard Allen, because he's got to stay in jail because he was found guilty and wait for the appeal. Well, yeah, if he's found guilty by a jury, you wait in jail. That's kind of how it works, right? It's crazy crap. It is the craziest crap. I mean, you guys see how that's worded? Because me and Paige were reading through this and we're like, oh my God, look how many times they're basically stating it like of him being found guilty. I mean, right, Paige? I mean, when you say that's kind of how
and if you do take the time to actually, click the link on the community post and read the full document, you will read for yourself how everything is worded, and it does seem that way. Like they're pointing towards them knowing he's going to be found guilty, and then they're talking about afterwards.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Hi, hello, Ruckus. Welcome. So the documents and the stuff that they're trying to let me put it this way. I think this is their last hurrah. This is it. This is their last chance. So they waited for it, and this was the shit hit the fan, oh my God stuff for the defense. Because no matter who you are, if your guys' confessions are all in there and they're in the 60 amounts, and like I'm going to tell you, I do think they have an opportunity of a third party. I don't say that to be pro defense, meaning like I'm not saying that like a, hey, you know, Richard Allen, whatever. You guys know what I think about all this stuff, but
Yeah.
I do think there is opportunity for them to do it. So I feel like that the appellate court of asking them to look at the potential of them bringing people up is there, but I'll tell you who and why, because it's not about Odinism. They need to get rid of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is they don't want to get rid of that. That's what they want to run with. That's what they want to use to get Richard Allen off of this. That's what they've
Right.
hoped for.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. Well, and you know, they sit here, and I'm sitting here reading Nevada's comment. Yeah, they sat here and they had already spent over $500,000. It's exceeded over 1.1 million. It is only was budgeted by Carroll County for 2.1 million. And then of course the defense wanting a longer extended period of time to present that whole oldness, which was the reason we moved it. The court date was moved till October, and then they went from all the way from October to mid-November. I mean, that costs more money. You're sequestering a jury longer, you're feeding them longer, you're paying them daily longer, right? You've got all of that stuff going. So this part talked about in the filing. Additionally, should this court not allow these issues to be heard by the Court of Appeals in a interlocutory fashion, then during the jury trial set to begin October 14, 2024, the jury will be sitting for hours or perhaps even days while the defense presents its evidence in an offer to proof, or in an offer of proof. Whereas should the Court of Appeals find that the trial court was in error, then the jury will not be forced to wait outside the courtroom or in their hotel rooms for hours or even days while the defense presents its offer of proof. The trial will run more effectively and less expensive should these issues be resolved by the Court of Appeals before any trial takes place.
Right.
I'm so relieved in how considerate that they're being for the jury. They don't want the jury to be bored or sitting in there.
Well, they're going to be bored if they've got to listen to the defense talking about the same stuff over and over.
Right. And I think that, and so remember that the reason Judge Gold decided in the way she did is mainly because the Lamine was about, the main focus of the Lamine, at least for the defense, was about the Odinist and about the Odinist theory. Although they did list additional people, right? They did list who are those additional: Ron Logan, KEGAN Kline, and Tony Kline. And we're going to get into this. And anybody joining us late, these pieces here right now were of the defense's filing itself. So and I know you guys are all true crime fans, and you probably watch all the stuff. By the way, if you don't watch Murders in the Building, we really encourage you to do so, because we love that.
Only Murders in the Building.
Yes, yes. Hello, Growing Crazy. Yeah, we've got lots of shows we could tell you about that we watch, but Murders in the Building just started season 3. Anyway, it's hilarious because it's about podcasters, so we find it hilariously funny. The defense is supposed to create a reasonable doubt They're not there to prove who did do it. That's not their job. They're not there to do that. I mean, and what they are doing does not make sense to me of why there's so much low-hanging fruit that they're not doing. It makes you wonder why. But some of this, I think, almost even answers it, right? So in this, it talks about the court on August 29, 2024, order and September 4th, 2024 order both involved substantial questions in law and the early determination of those issues will promote a more orderly disposition of the case. To wit, the September 4, 2024 order denies Richard Allen the ability to present a defense violating both state and federal constitutions. So that's what they're trying to go in with, to the appellate court. Because again, Judge Gull has to approve it because she doesn't have to.
Yeah.
Because they can use this to appeal it after the trial. But they're trying to argue they want this before the trial so it will help them avoid to not waste the people's time and money and to the taxpayers and burden the officers. And then Richard Allen's going to have to stay in jail while if he's found guilty, right? He'd be found guilty if he was still staying in jail for them to appeal this. They want it done now. They don't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove who did it. It's reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
It's the prosecution burden.
Let's be honest though, right? They've continuously brought up Odinism, but have they given us anything new? No. They just keep repeating the same stuff over and over, which again, in my opinion, even in the pre-trial hearing and stuff, they've had experts that have shown that it's not Odinism. And I believe that.
Well, right. And they have where, I mean, everybody heard during that 3-day pre-trial that they did, which is shocking to me. I mean, the defense attorneys have money that they were given from Carroll County for expert witnesses. Hennessy Baldwin's friend attorney, who he had sat here and was part of the funds that were being raised in order to support it for expert witnesses. And then the witness who comes on is a art.
Dr. Oh, which one?
Right? She's that art.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Purdy.
Who, her art degree. And then they show that she went on television talking about Delphi and Odinism before she ever got any crime scene photos and stuff from the Delphi defense.
Yeah, she was on a news channel, wasn't she, talking about it?
I mean, that is some crazy shit. And, and no matter what, the prosecution was like, well, like she's saying, there was no sexual motive and stuff to that. And McLeland comment about, well, what if I told you, there was a sexual motive and, bringing that back around to her. And she's like, nope, I still think. And then she wasn't even claiming that both of them were in Odinist poses, right? She claimed one was, and the other one was a Roman numeral shape. Really? I swear to God.
Yeah, but then we have on the other hand, for the prosecution, where it's mentioned that the sticks placed on the bodies is actually an act of undoing.
Right.
Which makes more sense.
Exactly.
And he's more credible.
Well, yeah, and because they're talking about that the way
that's it.
Sticks and leaves and stuff gathered around them was to try to hide the view of them being able to be seen. you know, and where you think about also,
They
where it
mention, seeing a nude body from across the creek, but if that was kind of disguised with sticks and things the same color as things on the ground, it would kind of try to hide that. Um,
right,
which they believe from going to the crime scene and viewing it, and that's how they think, it would have been concealed.
right. Well, and also because, you know, the other part is that, Libby was appeared to be dragged up to near where Abby was
Yeah,
and moved up to that where that tree was. So if she
from where
was
the tree was. Yeah,
by description, not by viewing, I have not looked at,
no,
and I don't even know if I ever would look at crime scene photos, but I know based on description and stuff like that that they have said that, you know, that it showed that there were drag marks from Libby being moved. And so, you
and the
know,
evidence
again,
of
they're
blood
talking of
on the
that.
body. Yeah,
However, Libby was being left, you know, he wasn't leaving her there. He was, you know,
he pulled
resituating
her
them close
back up
together.
to where Abby was, right? Yeah,
So then we get to this page of okay, so most of the stuff again,
yeah,
Odinist, you know, they had Odinist stuff. And then we
yeah,
get to this.
yeah,
So it's talking about that the prosecutor requested the court to prevent the defense from presenting evidence that third party suspects Kegan Kline and Tony Kline committed the murders, even though credible evidence existed that Kegan Kline had arranged to meet one of the victims on the day of the murders. I'm going to stop right there.
yes, good, okay.
That is not a true statement, technically. And the
No,
reason I say that is because Anthony Schatz set up a meeting to meet with Libby.
yes,
So you have to go then, who was being Anthony Schatz?
right.
In my opinion, it's not Kegan Kline.
Yeah, and from law enforcement, we only ever get Anthony shots. And when they do address Kegan, they kind of correct themselves in the transcripts and they say, okay, Anthony shots, say Anthony shots spoke to Libby, you
Right.
know? So they
Okay.
don't even say that. They just say that Kegan Kline confirmed that he did create the Anthony Shots account.
And we do know from the 3-day pretrial hearing that they confirm that Tony Kline was also using the Anthony Schatz profile. Well, duh. I mean, we know that. I
There's
mean, we know
only
that
two
very early
people.
on when they were
Yeah.
interviewing Kegan back in 2020 when he was arrested. They were already talking about, you know, it's two different
Yeah.
dialogues. People
We
are
know it's
addressing the
not both
girls
you.
differently.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
one is having them call them, you know, daddy, right? Calling Anthony Schatz daddy. And you have where Kegan Kline at that time was stating, because she was at a slumber party on that Saturday, not the Sunday, but on the Saturday night that she's with a friend, both those girls were talking to Anthony Schatz. Kegan clearly stating that it was her friend. I wasn't talking to Libby. Well, somebody was talking to Libby that was using Anthony Schatz's profile. They
Yeah.
know.
And not only did the Anthony Shots profile communicate with Libby's friend after she went missing to say, I was supposed to meet her, but she never showed up. After Libby and Abby had already been murdered and the Clines went to Vegas, the Anthony Shots account messaged Libby even then,
Yep. Yep.
knowing she was murdered. So
And they questioned him of, why would you do that? Because you were already told that she was murdered by the friends.
Right, because he was actively searching the murders and how long does DNA last, and looking at the bridge guy's stuff. But then the Anthony Shots account is messaging Libby as if he doesn't know. Strange.
Here's what's interesting. You know, they sat here. I can tell you this, when the Anthony Shots profile replied back to say, I was supposed to meet her, but she didn't show up, I guarantee you that was Keegan, because he's an idiot, and that's exactly what he probably did. It's like,
Right.
what? I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right? And remember, the Klines are the ones who have stayed on the radar from 2017 when they searched the house. And remember, they took off the Vegas the right after the masked person showed up outside a girl's window, who also gave Anthony Shots an address.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the search of their house done the day they come back from Vegas, and that's when they get the devices. But God help us, they don't get the one iPhone 5C.
It's the most recent.
Used in there.
Yeah.
So then it goes on to say, after talking about, so they're saying Kegan Kline was the one who set up the meeting. Well, it's Anthony Shots. They never said that they figured out who that was. Kegan Kline implicated his father, Tony Kline, as being involved in the murders. Well, that was confirmed during the 3-day pretrial, that they confirmed that Kegan stated, and I did a show on that. If you haven't watched, I'm trying to remember what that show mainly was about that we did. But anyway, where he stated that he was waiting in the car at the cemetery at Delphi, that his father got out of the vehicle. He was gone for a while. He came back to the vehicle. He was covered in blood. He made the statement of they had fun, not indicating who that was supposed to mean. They left the area, and that it was stated that they were in a red Jeep, which I think is a red herring, but I don't know if we'll have time for me to explain that one.
That's another video.
Yeah, that's a whole nother one about some information we have. But also that they went over the Wabash River, and he said that Kegan said he threw out a phone, and that Tony Kline threw out a knife. And the only two statements that was made was they have not made a digital, that's the term they use, digital connection between Richard Allen and Tony Kline, and that there was no red Jeep seen on traffic cams.
Yeah.
So those were the two statements said by the officer during that 3-day pretrial. So he says about him being there and being involved in the murders. Then we've got law enforcement tried, and this is the defense saying this, law enforcement tried to tie Richard Allen to Tony Kline, and arguably only interrogated Richard Allen because of law enforcement initial belief that Tony Kline and Richard Kline knew each other.
Richard Allen.
Oh, what did I say? I'm sorry, Richard Kline. Richard Allen knew each other and committed the crimes together. Law enforcement officials discovered a cache of child pornography at Kegan Kline's personal cell phone during the course of their investigation. So here's the thing. What are they meaning that the only reason that Richard Allen is being questioned, interrogated, only being looked at because
they think Tony Kline knows him.
But but so how did they get there? How did they get there?
Yeah, how did they get to Richard Allen then? If they didn't have enough for Tony Kline, but they do for Richard Allen. So what's going on here?
Well, exactly. Exactly. You've got it. And so, the other thing is we don't know, and when the officer was talking about this, they did confirm that that the water search that was going on at the Wabash River in Peru near Tony Kline's house for 5 freaking weeks was due to information they received from Kegan Kline.
Mm-hmm.
What everybody didn't know at the time, but there was a water search that happened in Delphi at the same time. Vehicles were surrounded there, and it only lasted for 2 to 3 days. I don't know if it lasted even 3 days, but technically
it was a couple of days. Yeah.
They went in, they searched, and they left. So did they find something? Was there something in there? We don't know, because everybody and the news and everybody else was all directed to be looking at the search that was happening in Peru. And oh my God, that's near Tony Kline's house, and they're searching that bridge and they're searching that water. So if Kegan was stated that both those items were both thrown in the water together, why was there a search going on in the Delphi water? And why did it end so quickly and the other one last five weeks?
And like you said before, does it not make sense that if you were going to throw a burner phone, you would throw it closer to leaving the crime scene because you wouldn't want it to track you any further?
Right. Because if you purposely got a burner phone to hide what you're doing, you're going to try to get rid of that pretty quickly. And so if you're leaving the thing, you're going to be like, you're going to dump that to get rid of it, so that if somehow it's getting tracked, they're not going to track it all the way back to wherever that burner phone is going to go. But, with the knife, you may not throw that very close by the scene because you don't want it easily found. You don't want it picked up easily.
Yeah.
You may take that someplace else.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm reading in here. Fair maiden wins. State's witness list is the most important. More importantly, who's left off of the list. They would have had this ready for speedy trial a long ago. I agree with you. Right. SP 74. They just say they don't have a digital connection. And remember, we don't know how they eventually got to Richard Allen, right? We don't know how then there. Of course, they're going to say this and the other. We don't know how they ever got to him.
But the defense is claiming that law enforcement got to Richard Allen because of Tony Kline.
That's what this statement sounds like to me. They're saying that the only reason he's getting interviewed is because, because of that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't want to, upset any of my, prosecuting people, but I got to say what the rights of somebody is and what would be fair game. Remember that the tip line, the phone line, and the email are both still open. They've been open since they announced it for the arrest of Richard Allen. And it was stated directly by Nicholas McLeland. And I have videos to show all those clips. I have shorts that I did about all those clips. if you go watch them, where Nicholas McLeland is stating information about Richard Allen or any other person that
You
may
have
be
any involvement?
involved.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, that was the statement. So they left the lines open. And we also went through court documents that stated how they were saying that they believed that there was another person involved. And we know why that. Now, what's interesting is that phone line and stuff was still kept open. When was it announced that Richard Allen was arrested? October 31st. When did Kegan Kline get moved over and taken out of custody from one place to the other? To go, remember, we hear that he's removed from Miami County Court. He's put in the custody with the state police on that. He's, he's taken out to talk to the officers and stuff like that. And when he is, and you look at the dates of all of that, that's like August 19th. They start searching the water around the 20th, 21st, something like that. Sorry, I don't have that in front of me. They search it till mid part of September. I think they end maybe around, like, for some reason, I feel like it was on the 25th or something like that. But they suddenly go look at the Orion system again a couple of weeks prior to the water search ending.
Yes.
So how did that happen? Now, people are like, well, he didn't get a plea deal. He didn't get off. Well, he did have the day after, on November 1st, Kegan Kline lost 5 charges.
Yes.
Off of his record. But what deal do you think they're going to make? They're not going to make him a CSAM deal. These are murder charges. He's got to save his own butt if they think he's connected to murder. If they sit here and believe that Anthony Schatz, who he's the only person who admitted to creating Anthony Schatz, and that he did that, and they figure out that Anthony Schatz is who got Libby out there, then they can tell him very easily, you're going to be charged as accessory to murder. You help set it up.
Yeah, and I guess you could say he implicated his dad, but then why did he implicate himself too?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I know that the state said that it was misfiled by the FBI because the Orion system, it's not that it's filed, it's all computer entered. It is all computer entered. And when they have a major case like that, and I go through the Orion system, and Dan Dolan, go watch that video if you haven't. I go through how that system was used in Indiana for the April Tinsley case, the DC sniper case, and how that, as far as how that works, and everybody gets access to it. So when you have any kind of tip, it pours into the Orion system. And when they sit here and get information, they pull that stuff out. The only time the FBI spoke up about anything publicly being said was when it was said that there was a misfiled of information about the Dan Dolan tip with Richard Allen. That's the only time they spoke up. They never spoke up about the video that was lost in 2017 for the Marathon gas station, which was also told that at the same time that all this information came out, which was true, right? It was true that it was about Delphi. It was true. It was about Kegan Kline. And that was why the water search and everything was going on. And part of the other stuff that came out with that is that Kegan Kline sat here and Googled, while he was at home, the Marathon gas station in Delphi. But somehow the video gets lost and gone. They can't download it, right? This is the other part of what the defense did in this filing. the other ending part of this is that officials actually transported Kegan Kline to an area near the crime scene to corroborate his version of what he and his father Tony did near the crime scene on the day in question. Now,
Exactly.
don't hate me for this, guys, but I'm gonna have to say it because I think it's the case. I think the defense to bring up that Tony and Kegan Kline are potential third-party people who committed the murders would be fair game, because there is evidence in the public. They don't even have to go search. They know there is evidence that they've released that talks about Anthony Schatz was talking to Libby the day of her murder. Anthony Schatz replied, "Oh, I was supposed to meet her." Anthony Schatz was sitting here doing, right? All of this stuff. They can, show the evidence that they showed that why is when they go to, after he leaves his polygraph test, he fails. He goes and Googles, how long does DNA last? Somebody does. You don't know if it's Kegan. You don't know if it's Tony, but somebody Googles, how long does DNA last after he gets home from his questioning on the 25th of February. 2017. Then when they're in Vegas, February 25th. But when they're in Vegas, what are they searching? They're searching about it's being searched about Abby and Libby. It's been, as well as other disgusting stuff, right? Sex with minors, videos for sex with minors, all kinds of stuff like that. I think it's fair game. Because here's the thing, they're saying that the judge is ruling that there's not enough proof to say Odinism is anything.
Yeah.
You're using your expert witness as somebody who's sitting here just saying, yes, this looks like Odinism. This looks ritualistic.
We keep talking about Brad Holder's Facebook posts when he has a solid alibi, as he couldn't be involved in the murders. And why aren't they talking about Tony Kline and Kegan Kline's Facebook posts?
Well, and I don't understand too the supposed connection that they're also saying with the Odinist about being white supremacists when it's two white girls who are murdered. I'm just asking.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to shift who the focus was. They're trying to, they've always tried to say that Abby was the focus versus Libby was the focus. Well, forgive me, but Libby's the one who's left nude. Libby was the one whose throat was slit 3 times. Libby is the one who's nude on the crime scene. And anybody who watches true crime knows that when you find a child nude, that you're talking a sexual nature with the crime. I just, ugh. And you got to think too, if they know that Kegan, we know that Kegan gave up Tony Kline, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know Kegan's stupid, but here's the thing.
He also gave himself up in this statement.
If he was just framing his dad, wouldn't he just say, my dad went there? My dad went to Delphi.
Yeah. And also, why did Kegan try to leave days before the murders? And that, again, is another story.
Right. We know he was trying to leave town to head to Vegas with a friend.
On the 12th.
Of February, before the murders. He was trying to get out of town.
Yeah. But his friend couldn't go. So he couldn't go.
Right, because his friend's kid's birthday was around that time.
And what does he do the next morning? Log into Anthony Schatz, apparently, and apparently Google the Marathon gas station.
on the day of the murders.
So when you think about it, it does make me question, why are they not trying to use the Klines as their reasonable doubt? And remember, they don't have to prove anything. They don't have to prove anything to anybody. They don't need all this stuff. They don't need the, they don't like, the Odinist stuff. They were like, oh, well, law enforcement, you deleted this and you didn't keep this and you didn't do that, because they moved on. They moved on from Ron Logan. They moved on from Brad Holder and stuff very early on in the case. Guess who didn't move on from? The Klines.
Exactly. When it comes to them listing these different third-party suspects, Ron Logan was eventually looked into and cleared in the Delphi murders. His arrest and prison time had nothing to do with that. The same with the Odinism and Brad Holder, sorry. It was looked into very early on and he was cleared, and they were just looking into Odinism as a theory to see if that fit, and it obviously didn't, and they moved on. But like JSD just said, one thing we can't claim they did move on from was the Klines. And do we know they have a solid alibi? No. So, yeah.
Nevada, I get that. I think that there's a lot of stuff from
watch the video.
A little bit of comments, a little bit of just common sense of the odds of how many coincidences in a murder case happen that aren't any more coincidences. So you're telling me that both Tony and Keegan, and this is just entertaining, I'm just discussing this out loud, so it's not a bad thing. You're telling me that there are 2 online predators who are using fake profiles, who are communicating with girls in Abby and Libby's age and younger, God help us, who are and that somebody, Emily Ann, is trading CSAM an aggravating factor, meaning severity, meaning the age of the children, meaning torturistic type of stuff. And this Emily Ann is trading that stuff. Emily Ann also based on the head of the Indiana State Police Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, Chris Cecil, shares during Keegan's trial that Emily Ann is trying to meet with girls all across the country. And there were setups of other girls that were trying to be met up with. But Cecil also stated in the trial that there's no proof that Kegan Kline ever tried to meet with anybody. And there's no proof that Kegan Kline ever sent money to anybody. So we've got Libby, who ended up connected, in addition to her friends, because that's what these people do. That's how these predators work. They friend all of these girls that are friends with each other, because then they go, oh, well, I trust this Emily Ann, or I trust this Anthony Schatz because this girlfriend I know has them as friends, or has them as friends and has them as friends. So they accept it and they see what girls they can get images and stuff out of. And then for some reason, Anthony Schatz is trying to meet up with Libby, been talking to her and grooming her for months. We have proof that at minimum in December, he was liking her Instagram photos and stuff like that. We have those. So all this time is grooming. That whole weekend, they say that whole weekend, Anthony Schatz is talking to her. He's trying to meet with her.
In the police transcripts, it literally quotes that Libby was enthralled with Anthony Schatz.
She wanted to meet him. All weekend long, he's talking to her.
And several of her friends confirm that she verbally said that she was going to meet him.
And in my other videos too that I did not so long ago on the Klines, you know, we also have the timing of the day, the timing of how stuff worked. If these guys are pedophiles and they've got to sit here and they got to keep their phones and stuff from people knowing where they are. And if they're going to meet with somebody, they're going to be wise enough to use a burner phone. They're going to be wise enough that if somebody's going to meet with them and have a burner phone.
I mean,
So
they're actually Apple phones.
Libby told her friends she was going to meet Anthony Schatz.
That's why one of her friends messaged Anthony Schatz after she went missing to see if he had heard from Libby. Because she knew they were supposed to. He had to cover his tracks and say he was supposed to, but she didn't show up.
Yep. Yep. So when you've got all of it, I just think it's odd that Anthony Schatz set up to go meet her, that they showed that they were logged in that morning.
Yeah.
That they talk about a burner phone that got thrown in the water. And the phones got left at a cousin's house, which they're talking about it getting used because somebody's looking at pornography at the time. Well, how do you know who that is? Just because their phone is sitting there doesn't mean they don't have burner phones. Look how many phones they arrested them with.
Yeah. And I find it hard to believe the odds of more than one predator knowing where she was that exact day off from school and having the time and opportunity to do it. And I also don't think it was a crime of opportunity.
But here's the thing, guys. So let's say you all know whether you favor the Kline theory or don't favor the Kline theory. This is the part of discussion. Why is the defense not using the Kline theory? Why have they not used the Kline theory instead of the Odinist theory? They're talking about all this evidence that the police don't have. They don't have to prove who committed the murder. They have to create reasonable doubt. You don't think this would create a potential reasonable doubt to go walk in there and interview an officer and say, who created Anthony Schatz, Kegan Kline? Did Anthony Schatz set up a meeting to try to meet with Libby? Yes. Was he sitting here liking and talking to her on the devices? Yes. Here's the witnesses. They have teenage girls who came forward who are friends with Libby, a bunch of them said that Anthony Schatz told them, oh, like it was in a panic of, I was supposed to meet her, but she didn't show up. So they would come and can testify that Libby was going to meet with Anthony Schatz and that Anthony Schatz told them that he would. So he's not saying he wasn't there. He's saying he was supposed to meet her and she didn't show up. Not that he didn't show up.
He's saying he was there. Yeah. It's just
so. I mean, so again, I'm just talking this from a legal perspective. It doesn't matter if you believe in the Kline theory or not in the Kline theory. I'm just bringing this up because now they're bringing this up. It's in the Lamine, but they still keep only talking about that their whole case has been based on the Odinist theory. But yet when you read this, and again, I'll drop this in if you're just joining in here late, I'll drop the court document that they filed, this rare court filing that they did. And again, it has to be approved by Judge Gall, and then it has to be approved by the appellate court if it happens, because normally this process would not happen until after a judgment, after the trial. And they're literally stating that. The defense states that themselves, that it wouldn't normally be till then. But they're trying to tell Judge Gull, it'll save money, it'll save time, it'll be less anguish on the families, it'll be less anguish on the taxpayers, all of this stuff, okay? All they have to do is reasonable doubt. But yet what I just read to you about what they're saying and adding, this is the first time they're saying out loud to everybody, even though people have suspected it, and you can't tell I'm raising my hand right now, that potentially this was a setup based on Anthony shots, and that Tony Kline and Tony Kline and Richard Allen, they're stating in the defense thing that they think they committed the murders together, that they know each other and they committed the murders together.
Yeah, that law enforcement think that. Exactly.
So I'll argue this. Why is the defense just saying this now?
Yeah, and it's not.
How is that not reasonable doubt to present at his trial?
And it's not even like with the Odinism stuff that law enforcement looked into that early on, because if they're saying that law enforcement believe that Richard Allen and Tony Kline committed the murders together, well then Richard Allen was only recently arrested. So does that mean up until that point they still suspected Tony Kline and they no longer do? So that doesn't make any sense. You know? Where did that end, if that is true? If it ended at all.
It just does not make sense to me to use
Yeah.
the Klines. Unless, and I'm speculating, but go there with me, everybody. I normally don't like to speculate too much, but I'm doing it because it's fun and it's my damn channel, so I can do it.
At least you say
there's some truth to it. Unless there's some damn truth to it. Right? So total speculation. What if the meeting was set up by Tony Kline for Richard Allen and he used Anthony shots to do it? What if Tony Kline made Kegan Kline do it for Richard Allen? And because normally Kegan does that for Tony Kline. Right? Or who knows? Did Richard Allen have access to that? Here's where the problem is. They digitally don't have a connection. Well, hell yeah, because it took goddamn 6 years. 6 years. They had plenty of time to delete the shit off of their connections.
Mm-hmm.
Right, SP74. I mean, here's the thing. If they kept arguing, we don't have enough evidence and that the police got rid of evidence that would prove Odinist theory had it. And they're like, okay, well, we didn't record this because we didn't think Holders did it. And we confirmed his alibi. So if they use the Odinist theory, all the police have to do is say, here's his alibi.
Yeah.
That's all they'd have to do. But that's what they did with the judge, right? With Judge Gull and stuff. They went through that through the pretrial. There's talked about them investigating them. They talked about them calling in for the interview. They didn't record that stuff. They tried to accuse them and stuff of losing. They would lose. Why would law enforcement lose information? Indiana State Police, the FBI, all of these different agencies that are involved. Why would they lose information for somebody that they could have solved this damn murder back in 2017 if they thought it was Brad Holder?
Yeah, they're trying to claim that law enforcement didn't look into the actual killers properly, which is insane. I'm sorry to say that, but that's what I think. It's my opinion.
I think for the longest time when Doug Carter kept saying and making comments about that there were just, like a little bit of information from it. There was something that confirmed that Richard Allen's there, right? We definitely know about the bullet. So, me and Paige had this discussion the other day.
What do they have?
If there's no DNA, let's say there's no DNA. What if there's nothing like that at all? Okay. Then you have to go to what's left. You've got his vehicle is seen on the Hoosier Harvest Store camera. You've got he's seen by eyewitnesses coming onto the trail, which are the teenage girls.
Mhm.
You've got, I'm trying not to use her name. You've got
A witness
a
seeing him on
witness
the
who
first
comes in
platform.
and then sees him standing on the bridge at the first little platform, only 50 feet away from him, right? The first little
Yeah.
platform there.
Yeah. And then halfway between her walking back, she walks past Abby and Libby, and they're walking towards the bridge that she just saw him standing on.
right. You've got the video that was made into the picture, right? First it was then sent as a picture, then it was the video of him.
Bridge guy.
You've got two separate sketches, although the reason one looks older and one looks younger is basically because of the age of the people who were
Of the
giving the
witnesses.
thing.
Right.
Sketches suck. Sketches are not exact. They're not a photograph. It's supposed to be that the person kind of looks like this. That's what the sketch is.
Resembles them. And if you do look at both sketches, they do have similar features.
Right. And then you've got the muddy and bloody witness who sees him walking on 300 North. Right. And then you've got him
The
admitting
fact,
he was there that day.
yeah, and the fact that nobody sees Richard Allen after 213, nobody sees Bridge Guy after 213, and Richard Allen doesn't mention seeing any other guy there at the time that looks like Bridge Guy.
Right. I think that I will say this because they're talking about phones and stuff like that. So let me give you something that I find interesting. I did a video on geofencing, and I show an actual clip from a murder that was solved using geofencing. And it literally shows you that the geofencing that the FBI did first did kind of a little bit general of an area. And I mean like a house that this house that also had other, like they would rent out these little places around it so they could see like maybe, and there was a wedding. So there was like maybe, I don't know, 25 people or something in there. So they had lots of little dots on this. Well, they wanted to find out if they could spot the murderer with the victim. And so they narrowed it to literally in the geofencing, narrowed it to the house. And if you go look at my video for it, it'll show you exactly. And when they did it, the geofencing literally showed the victim inside that house with the phone. And then they showed that the other phone moving, coming closer to into the house, and then showed that it was suddenly in the house. And they knew that that other phone, the victim's phone and the murderer's phone, were in the house together for an hour and a half. They knew that. So I am surprised that the prosecution, McLeland, stated during this 3-day pretrial hearing, it was discussed about the geofencing. And I really thought this, this is really going to be brought in there. This is going to say something. And I think the defense itself was anxious to include it. And I was surprised to learn that. So McLeland sits here and he's like, well, it's not really, this exact thing, this perfect thing or whatever. Well, there could be circumstances that doesn't let that happen. But then it made me pause for a minute. If there is somebody else there, even just with Richard Allen, and I'm speculating, so just to let you know, it's going to show another phone, whether it's a burner phone or whatever phone. The thing is that when the FBI goes to locate the phones,
no, yeah,
they won't be able to identify. So normally, like if it's an assigned number, it's not a burner phone. They get the list of the phones. The whole Google Map things gives the list of all the phone numbers in there, and they know who everybody is. If it's a burner phone, they don't know who that assigned person is. And if you guys remember the cell phone numbers that was given to Dan Dolan, we discussed the MEID, right, versus an IED, and which one that Richard Allen had and which one he didn't on his phone. And we talked about that, of what, that it would locate you and actually have the GPS on it, or one that wouldn't. Now, there has been crimes that have been solved with people using burner phones, because they can still track it. They can
there's
still,
many.
they can track where, eventually when they see a burner phone in there, if they see a phone that's in there for a while, they can turn around and go keep expanding out the number itself. But if that burner phone can be tracked from something in there, I don't know, may dump it in the water, right, in Delphi somewhere. And even if they find that phone, let's say they found that phone in 2022, in Delphi, not in Peru. If they found a burner phone that would be in there, it takes a while for them to do anything, even just getting CSAM on a phone, anything like that. But if they do it, the other thing that happens is that if a phone has been sitting in the water for, what would that have been? 5 years?
Yeah.
Then they have to sit there and see what they can recover. And there's only certain groups and agencies that can do that. So I was surprised that the prosecution wasn't going to use that to narrow it. I don't think they have to, because I think with the bullet, they're going to say that. And if there's anything else, we don't know. I did do a video, and I don't know if you guys saw it, that they did do genetic genealogy as an expense for the Indiana State Police. So they did have something that they spent $20,000 on for genetic genealogy. So was that used? Could have that tracked him? We don't know. But I will say this, if Tony Kline would know Richard Allen, I would think Kegan Kline would know that, right?
Yeah.
And so, it could have been that he finally said, this is here. You guys have talked to him. He did say he was there or whatever. And then they go back and look that up, and then they start watching him for a while, because remember, they said that, oh, we found him on Orion. Well, they didn't say that happened till I think it was the September 13th. And you guys can go check my videos to verify, but because I'm going off my head right now, not looking at something, but it was the 13th of September. Well, when did they go see him? They didn't even go talk to him with Ligadin then until October 13th. That's the first time they talked to him. And then after they talked to him and he confirms everything that was said to him, that said to Dan Dolan, and then confirmed more, remember? And the Dan Dolan report, it even says that there were 3 girls that he saw. May need to follow up to see who those 3 girls are. Well, shit, we know who those 3 girls were. They're the teenage girls who saw him. He knew he had to say he saw them because they saw him. I mean, it's just, so I just want somebody to explain. The end of the day, the defense team's job, and you guys know, I mean, I am very much pro-truth. I'm not saying this to be oh, even this massive Richard Allen supporter, because I do have my suspicions that he did it. I'll know more when, just like all of us, when the case happens and all of the evidence comes out. But when you confess 61 times and you have all this stuff going on, there's suspicion. But for the defense team, you don't have to prove who did it. So why are they not using the Klines? Isn't that the easiest part? I think the only reason you would avoid it, possibly, and this isn't a, speculation, absolutely, is because
there's some truth.
There's truth.
Yep.
And if that's true, and if he knows that somebody else is involved, then when all of his things are done, right? Like this is the last hurrah for him right here. This is like, okay, she said no. They're going to go through with the case, and does he found guilty? And then they're going to wait for the appeal. No, they're going to find this very rare finding or filing. They're going to try to ask the court to let them do the appeal in front of it instead of in back of it. And then if that's not available, which is where they were waiting to find out what was going to happen, and they throw out they let him have the confessions, and they throw out everything for Odinism and stuff, then, what's left for him?
Yeah.
If he knows somebody else is involved, like a Tony Kline, and he tells it, then they have something to work with. But I don't know why you would not use that as reasonable doubt. Does not make sense to me. Just does not make sense. And we don't know what other evidence they found. So that brings the stuff here. We pulled up because of the comments and stuff that was said, right? He just said about that that Richard Allen, they were trying to connect to Kegan Kline. I'm sorry, Tony Kline, that he knew Tony Kline. So we went back and we looked at the only time this could have happened was the day that they were arresting him. And he was called in to go back where his vehicle was kept. And it was October 26th of 22. And the Jerry Holman, and this was filed by defense.
Yeah.
They were trying to withhold the second statement. So when we looked at this, so they talked about that after a few phone calls to the state police, basically they were trying to schedule to pick up their car.
And law enforcement had it for 13 days.
Right. So they were down to, I think, one vehicle at the time. So they drove out to the West Lafayette police post to they were told was to get their car. But police can lie to you, especially if they're just getting you to turn yourself in, because they're going to arrest you. So, they told them about coming out there. And then when they got there and arrived at the station, then Holman met him and then said that he had a few things he wanted to, touch base with him before they would release or do anything. And they asked Cappy to stay there.
Yeah, his wording was interesting.
And requested Rick to follow him to the interrogation room without Kathy. So Rick complied. Kathy was not allowed to participate in the questioning. She was told she could wait in the lobby. So they go into that interview room, right? Then we've got timing where they're talking about, we have experts that say that's you on the bridge and that your voice is in the video. There's no, there is no evidence that supports this statement. Jerry Holman lied.
Yeah, they're trying to say he's lying, right?
Yeah. So this is all filed by the defense. You guys remember this. This is where we're pulling some of these quotes from. So he says experts are saying that that's you on the video, and experts are saying you said down the hill. So again, I'm not going to read what the defense part is. I'm just going to read like the information. Holman tells Rick that the witnesses saw a gun in his pocket. So basically, we know at this point he's confronting him that there were witnesses that saw him. And then I'm not lying to you about anything. Everything I'm telling you is fact. The experts say you said go down the hill. So they're talking about voice comparison stuff. So, and then they talk about that Holman said, you know, I'm not lying to you, Rick. That's unethical. So, they talked about how Jerry Holman tells Rick that it was supposed to be an exploratory interview, and they're arguing that that's not what that was. That he barked at Rick Allen, right? There's all this stuff that he's trying to claim that happened and how mean he is and stuff at him. Here's what's interesting. So, you're going to drag your, oh, well, that we did, it does have cuss words in it, doesn't it? We're going to drag your effing wife and your daughter through this because you're too effing bullheaded to get out in front of this and admit you made a mistake. And whatever the F happened out there, we'll never effing know because you're too big of a effing, I don't even know what inaudible would be.
Yeah, no.
Right? So then he says the evidence clearly indicates you are involved. And I love the words of it, right? That you are involved.
Yeah,
in
they're
this.
not
Not that you did it.
Yeah, not that you're the
involved.
killer. Exactly.
Now, the reason that we're pointing this out to you is because this is the only time. Now, we don't have the full, and remember, the defense wanted this thrown out. We don't have the full dialogue back and forth. We don't have the transcript of it. So when the defense is filing that they wanted the second statement, so if you go back and look at any of the documents I've dropped, you're looking for the defense
the interrogation
to suppress the second statement. The only time that the allegation would have happened about Tony Kline and Kegan Kline and them questioning him would be here. Because they're not questioning Richard Allen again after they arrest him here. This is when it's already been 13 days since they did the search of the house, which he says, Holman addresses that. He says, I want you to come because I want to talk about the, I'm trying to remember how he worded it, Paige. Do you remember? Did he say the word evidence or about what we found at your house? Something about the search warrant, what we did.
Yeah, he wanted to talk to him about the results of the search warrant, like what they'd found at his home. That's why he brought him in for that second interrogation.
Right.
So, and
then
if the defense are going to claim that law enforcement thought that Richard Allen and Tony Kline were connected, and that's the only reason why Richard Allen was interrogated, then yeah, like you just said, it would have been this second interrogation that they wanted to suppress that would have had the questioning or mentioning of Tony Kline. But it doesn't, not what was shown, and they wanted to suppress it.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
So you've got him talking about that. Jerry Holman says the evidence clearly indicates you are involved in the case. Then we go through, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. No. No, it doesn't. Yes, it fucking does. Okay, whatever. So Rick Allen, it doesn't. I'm telling you that there is no way that a bullet from my gun was used in these murders. I love that terminology too. Was used.
Yeah, because we know there was no bullet used in the murders. Okay, Rick Allen, we know that.
Right.
But there was a bullet ejected from your gun, which was at the crime scene.
Yep. He says, I'm telling you that we had this around on February 14, 2017. It's been secured in a laboratory and we've tested other guns. Said you would have had to taken it from somewhere else then because it's not possible. He goes, I did not take it from somewhere else. It was logged in. It was taken. It was photographed. You think we effing took a round and threw it down by the dead girl's foot? This ain't TV. This is realistic. I'm
Yeah, and
telling you, I can't explain something that, and I'm telling you that analysis explains it. You can't get past it. Go ahead, dear. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say that I can't actually remember what I was gonna say now, so don't worry. I can't remember. You probably covered it. That's why I didn't say anything.
So
Yeah.
then we've got I'm not on Jerry Holman. I'm not on video, Rick. Neither am I, Jerry Holman. So this has got to be when he's saying, you know, we've got your car arriving, right? We know the time that the car is shown arriving there. He says, Jerry Holman goes, 4 or 5 witnesses didn't see me out there. Rick says me either. So he's talking about the witnesses. My round out of my gun wasn't 6 inches away from a dead girl. Mine either. So this is when all this stuff is going on, right? This is the evidence. This is 13 days later after they first did the search on the house. It's 12 days later after they sent the swabs and the carpet from his vehicle to the lab. And remember this, on the 26th, they still don't release their car back to them. The car doesn't go home. That wasn't the purpose of it. They got him to come there because by this point, they have probably already talked to the prosecutor, and they have decided there is enough evidence to arrest him.
And Jerry Holman says that he wants to talk to him about the results of that search warrant conducted on his house. So they found something.
So when he says, I think you're involved, that is odd wording. That's why I'm saying we know that there's more to this. And I think when the defense recently, you know, sometimes they bring up stuff to reveal it to us, even when they're not supposed to. And I think that the reason they're bringing up this whole thing about, hey, guys, they were trying to connect Richard Allen, saying to Tony Kline. They were interviewing him. The only reason they interviewed him was basically because of Tony Kline. Well, why was that? How is that possible? What does that mean? And then they're sitting here going, oh, they're trying to say they knew each other and that they committed the crime together. So you don't think at this point they're not trying to sit here and ask him, hey, I know you're involved, you know, but who else did it? Who else was there? Who else is with you? Especially we know that they're still talking to KEGAN. So here it says, he literally says to you, I don't think you're a bad guy. And then Rick goes, what kind of good person kills 2 people? Rick Allen then says, you're going to pay for what you've done to my wife. You want to fuck with me. But if you leave my wife out of this, leave me out of this. He says, no, you're involved in this. See, that wording means something to me. I mean, when he says you're involved, to me, that means something because it's like, he's not saying you did it, right? It's not just you did it. He's saying you're involved in this.
Yeah, he's not saying like when he says, you know, it's not my bullet that was found there. You know, he's not saying like we know you didn't commit the murder or anything like that. He's not stating it in that way. He's stating he knows he has involvement.
Right. Yep.
Which also makes me think that they do have information on possibly the other person, but they need more.
And remember, Kegan Kline comes out and says, and I have short videos on that and lots of other breakdowns. I have a whole Kline, we have a whole Kline timeline that we did, like a whole breakdown of that. But when you've got him sitting here at this point, they're asking him in this interview about Tony Kline. They just had information given to them from Kegan, right? They did a water search like the month before. So now they're trying to get it. So here's this potential thing. Here's a scenario, you know. So what if they believe that what if they still believe that Tony Kline did it, right? Because, you know, they're still looking at them until to 2022. They were on the beginning radar in 2017. They were still on a radar all the way to 2022 for certain by that point. So if they still have it, then what if they, you know, they don't have a picture of a second person there, but, and I'm just throwing these out there. Please, nobody think I'm saying that this is out there. I'm just saying, what if they show 2 boot prints that are near the bodies? Right? What if there's a second boot print?
Yeah, a different set of footprints that aren't the girls and that aren't Richard Allen.
You know, what if that second phone, they don't want the defense using it because they're not ready to move on Tony Kline, but they have it so they knew that somebody else is on the site. If they let Richard Allen use it, then it's going to show that there's somebody else there. And then that would support their theory from that. But then it goes back, then I go back to it. Why are they not using the Klines for just reasonable doubt? Why are they hanging their hat only on the Odinist? It's not their job to solve the crime. If they truly believe, which I can't imagine somebody thinks it's true, that they're trying to solve the murder. That's not their job. They just are supposed to reasonable doubt for their client. And there is nobody else who has a lot of evidence that's connecting them to Anthony Schott's Libby and directly to Libby, who, I mean, and if you've got, so here's the other thing. If Kegan, why would Kegan not just say my dad was there? If he's just framing his dad, why did he say he's there too?
Yep. Why do you implicate himself?
I mean, the only thing I can think, the only reason you would implicate yourself or give up that you were there is because they're going to sit here and say, okay, just like they were probably doing with Richard Allen. They could be saying to him, you know what? We know you created Anthony Schatz. Anthony Schatz was communicating. Anthony Schatz said about meeting her. Anthony Schatz literally said he was there and she never showed up. Well, who is that? Because they've accounted for, you know, some witnesses and stuff like that during the afternoon. Remember, we did a show about the missing witness. There's some missing, technically it should have been called the missing witnesses, because there's other people we know that were there that saw some stuff that could be a second person, but it just wasn't the person who was photographed on the bridge.
Yeah, and that's why it wasn't mentioned in like Richard Allen's probable cause, because it's another person and those witness statements are for another person and not him or bridge guy, they say.
Right. Yep. So when he sits here and he continues about his threat to a lieutenant with the Indiana State Police, no, you're involved in this. Your round is there, Rick. He's like, no, it's not. You're guilty of something. You're guilty of something, Jerry Holman says. You're guilty, and I know it, and I'm gonna prove it. So that's interesting that he says he's guilty of something. So this piece, so that was all the defense's filing on that second interview. And then we had the state's objection to that. And it just talks about, this is the reply, that on October 26, 22, Richard Allen came to the Indiana State Police Post in Lafayette to talk about the return of his vehicle, that had been searched. He came to the post voluntarily under his own volition. Once he arrived at the police post, he was asked to speak with Lieutenant Jerry Holman. He was taken to an interview room where he was informed by Lieutenant Holman that he wanted to speak to him about the results of the search of his home, but that he was free to leave at any time. Then they go into
the search of his home.
Right. So, and this was when the defense also tried to accuse how small the room was, how intimidating Holman was to Richard Allen. Now, let me remind you, they dropped this. They dropped the motion to suppress the second interview.
Interrogation, yeah.
Now, why would they do that? They're still fighting for the first one. They were fighting for that in the Franks hearing, that they didn't want. That would have dropped out Liggett's interview. It would have dropped out the search warrant, everything else. But they dropped this one. Well, why? Because this has I would claim, my speculation here is because this one probably has them asking him about Tony Kline. And if he's interviewing him and asking him about Tony Kline in there, that's evidence they'd want to use, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's the details of what stuff that we know, what is going on. If you joined us late and you want to catch on the rewind or go backwards to see it, we show the status hearing wasn't officially closed until September 4th. We show the rareness of the appeal that was filed for Indiana. We show the low percentage rate of it to be successful if it's approved by Judge Gull, and then it has to be approved by the appellate court, has to want to see it. They're asking them to hurry because their court date's October 14th. However, if that's approved and stuff like that, it can delay. It can delay the whole trial. And I don't know, for that reason alone, she'd want to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I doubt it.
So, we talked about the rarity. We talked about, them admitting in the filing that that the law enforcement was trying to show a connection, that basically show that Tony Kline and Richard Allen know each other, and that they were stating that basically that they thought that Tony Kline and Richard Allen committed the murders together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the defense's words. That's I know you're shocked here because you guys know all my theories about this stuff and where I have suspicion, just kind of this gut feeling of, of this thing that I just can't shake. And, I've admitted to having to eat a fedora, which I may find one in chocolate, so it won't be so bad, to eat if somehow the Klines are not involved in this case by the time it's all over.
Yeah.
But this is the last hurrah for the defense team. This is it. There is, I mean, technically, you could argue that it was it. And if there was going to be a plea deal potential thing brought up, it would be during that status hearing, and it wasn't. So then they closed it off. So then that took everything off of it. So now, instead of accepting that like normally trials do, that's why this filing is rare, to hear the appeal before, not after. And they claim that themselves. They say that themselves. And they're claiming that if he's found guilty, then that it would be better to do it now instead of the second trial after he's found guilty, because it'll cost so much money and cause all this burden on everybody, right? And then we go back and look at HOLEMAN's statements of what little we've seen, because we don't have the full transcripts. And he says, makes those types of comments where, basically implying that you're involved. He's not using the term "you did it." He used the term "you're involved." And then that's exactly what they say, that the only reason that Richard Allen is questioned is because of Tony Kline.
Yeah.
Yet they're not using, again, they don't have to prove who did it. They're not the ones in charge of finding the murderer. They're supposed to create reasonable doubt for their client. And they keep sticking with Odinism from the beginning. And the Klines are easy to create reasonable doubt. That's all they have to tell people. Hey, did you create Anthony shots? Yep. Were you and your dad using it? Yep. Were you setting and telling people you're going to meet girls on there? Yep. You were already charged with it? You already pled guilty? Yep. Okay. Well, we think that KEGAN Kline and Tony Kline did it. And that's all they have to tell the jury. And that creates reasonable doubt. Why would they not use that?
Yeah. I agree.
So is there anything else we didn't cover in all that stuff we were going over, Paige?
Oh, geez. Let me check my notebook. Let's have a look. I don't know.
Oh, we do want to mention that there was another filing that happened, and it is for them to that was one they asked for a short. That was an interview that they wanted to have with the
I can't say his last name, but
Department of Correction. It was an officer with Department of Correction.
Right. They wanted his kind of work history information and everything.
Right. But I mean,
No,
before, I was
covered
really
everything.
waiting for these decisions to come down, because from Judge Gull, in a normal case, that would be it. They know that that everything's gone. They don't have a chance to. There's no more. They have to include the confessions. They can't use the third party stuff in there unless they present. Now let me point. I should specify that. She filed that they can't use this Odinist stuff or whatever. If they try to use a third party thing, then what happens is what she filed, they still have a chance to. They can still do it. They can go to court. The jury would leave. The defense has another opportunity to present it to Judge Gull and say, let's throw this out there. Say, you know what? We show all this stuff. We want to show the Klines are the ones who did it. We think it's an alternative theory that the Klines are doing it. They were questioning. They were suspects. They did this, that, whatever. And then she could say, okay, well, that's reasonable, right? That's more reasonable than the Odinist theory. They haven't proved it.
No.
Their expert witness didn't prove a damn thing.
No.
And then they could even say, then, we want to show the evidence of the geofencing, we want to show it because it's showing that more than Libby's and one other phone there. It's showing another phone there. And that is why I did a show not that long ago and brought up, if they're going to make charges against another person, because remember, we're not just making up they think another person's involved. That's why they left the tip line and the email tip line open. They left it open because they're talking about anybody else involved. That's what McLeland said. Doug Carter even said to get anybody else involved in any way that had anything to do with this at all. So
could even be corruption of justice by not coming forward if they had information.
Right.
As well, you know?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we thought it was interesting to go ahead and we wanted to go back and look at the Holman interview of what pieces we had to see. I think some of the statements that he said, he kept saying, you're involved. You're involved. Not the phrase, you did it. We know you did it. We know you committed the crime. He's using the term, you're involved.
Mm-hmm.
And if for some reason, if there's any way that the police believe that Tony Kline was with Richard Allen, right? What the defense is claiming, because think about this, the defense is claiming that that's why Richard Allen was talked to, and that's why Richard Allen, what they were trying to connect Richard Allen to. KEGAN Kline is saying that he told the police, but they can't corroborate. You know, and I would argue that they can't corroborate. Maybe they just don't have enough evidence. Just because KEGAN Kline tells you that his dad's there isn't evidence.
No.
Because Tony Kline could come back and say, I wasn't involved with this. He did it. He set up Anthony's shots. He set up the meeting. Him and Richard Allen did it, right? He could throw it out that way. But if they are still even thinking about that, they've got to have proof. Now, if Richard Allen knows that Tony Kline's in there, then that's a bargaining chip he would have. So, well, I will tell you, Miss Page and I worked very, very hard today trying to get this all together and trying to get everything done. We wanted to get this in there and see what was happening, what was going on, why they had that span of time before they closed up this hearing too. So now it's wait and see. Will she judge Gull? She does not have to. This doesn't violate anything. They can still go to the appeal court. If he's found guilty, they can appeal it.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to make her appeal before the judgment. So she can, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So she can easily say no. To be honest with you, Paige, what do you think? I think she's going to say no.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I think she's done with this extended things. I think she's done with, all of this stuff, just tactics to keep making the trial prolong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then maybe if they know she's not doing anything else, then we'll see what their plan is for their client.
I'm sure we'll find out really soon.
Yeah. I mean, either way, we are going to know by next month what the evidence is and whether a jury decides he's guilty or not, and what all comes out after that. What else did they have? What else did they bring forward?
Yeah.
So Well, we can't thank you guys enough for being here, right? Again, please, please, please check out the community page. That's where we drop documents and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
And
All
lots
the
of stuff.
documents in this video.
Missing kids, updated other cases, people who, any other massive CSAM, not every CSAM, but only the most severe right now. I've been posting, or something that has their peer-to-peer, something going on with that. I'll share that. But yeah. So we drop a lot, and I do drop a lot. I do have days but there's a lot going on sometimes. So I try not to irritate everybody with a lot. But if you want to be notified, if you want to hear what's going on with court cases, what's going on with documents, follow up to cases we have covered, Oakley Snow, Valerie Tyndall. I did recently the post of, like the boy in the suitcase. His mother was sent to a mental hospital. She was not tried. So if you haven't checked out community page, the details about all that's in there. And we appreciate you guys all being here very much.
Yeah.
And Paige, I appreciate all your help today working on everything.
Oh, I love doing it with you. You know that.
Yeah, and I love having you up here. And I need a shout out to CJK and Jinx, as always, the lovely ladies who help us so much.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you guys. And please, I'm not a monetized channel, but your likes of my videos helps, because since I'm not monetized, they don't put me on the what do you call it, algorithm out there, because I don't make money for YouTube, because I don't make it monetized. I don't want to follow their restrictions about saying that somebody was unalived when they were murdered. I think YouTube needs to get with the times and do stuff for YouTube true crime channels that we're going to talk about this.
Yeah, exactly.
So, plus, I don't want people, YouTube taking away percentages of your guys' hard-earned money and stuff like that. But your likes, your comments under my videos, your subscribing means so much to me, because it means that you appreciate the work that we do here, and the passion we have for helping people. And I know there's a lot of great people who are in the true crime community, and you guys come out and watch what's going on and everything. So we can't thank you enough. So, but thank you, Miss Paige, for being up here. Love you much.
And good night.
Yes, good night. You'll be going to sleep.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
I'll catch
guys.
you later. Bye, Paige.
Bye.
Yes. She's like 5 hours ahead of us. So yeah, that's a lot. Yes, guys, thank you very much. Appreciate all of you. We'll keep you up to date on everything. And thank you for making sure that justice is served daily. Goodbye, guys.